Ever seen a fallen star rise again? That's exactly what they're watching. You, risen from the graveyard of their doubts. No longer broken, but weaponized. They'll never admit it, but they sensed the shift. Not when it began, but when it became unstoppable. You didn't broadcast your pain or beg for justice. You transformed, quietly, fiercely, irreversibly. They're scrolling your page like it's sacred text, whispering your name as if it's cursed scripture. They can't decode your rise because this wasn't about a makeover or a new routine. It was bone-deep evolution. You got sick of being disposable, underestimated, overlooked. You got tired of bleeding for people who dance on your ruins, so you snapped, and something ancient, cold, luminous, divine, and utterly vengeful awakened in you. Now, they're drawn to you like moths to a funeral flame, convinced it's hate. But this isn't hate, darling. It's worship in disguise. And you walk through it, unfazed, because you paid for this with silence, suffering, self-erasure. You stretched until your spine cracked. Now they'd trade their dignity just to send a DM. They replay your old conversations as if they're scripture, asking themselves, what did we miss? How did we not see this coming? You didn't glow up, you exploded into untouchable, unapologetic, unrecognizable. They thought they knew your ending, but you became the plot twist they can't stop analyzing. They fell in love not with your highlight reel, but with the version of you that survived their neglect. The version that needs no explanation, bows to no one, smiles like a blade. Now you walk differently. You speak slower, laugh soft, and exist without proving a damned thing. They feel it, like a phantom limb. Obsessed doesn't begin to cover it. They stalk your posts at 2 a.m., mimic your style, await your next move. Every little win you hold, every silence you maintain, their world trembles. They whisper, was I wrong? Did I lose something sacred? Here's the shift. It's not in your wardrobe, wallet, or followers. It's in your detachment. You abandoned the need to be understood. You stopped performing for mirrors that couldn't reflect you. Now your presence is a glitch in their matrix. Radiant, defiant, inexplicable. Yes, they'll chalk it up to luck, faking it, selling their souls. Let them choke on excuses. They underestimated the wrong spirit. Pain didn't break you. It built a palace that's now embedded in your bloodstream. And every attempt they make to replicate your power ends up forced, hollow, awkward. Because they skipped the suffering, the broken nights, the screams into voids no one heard. You burned for this transformation. You paid the price, and now they pay theirs. With anxiety, restless dreams, and a hollow ache. They don't want you back. They want access to the version of you they dismissed. The one who held mirror to their soul, fueled them, awakened them, but now is gone, replaced by someone untouchable. This is no simple curiosity. It's spiritual obsession. It doesn't fade with blocking or moving on. It stalks them in dreams, wakes them at 3:17 a.m. with your name like a gunshot. They hallucinate your concern, your presence, your care. They read meaning into every breath you post. Meanwhile, you breathe in peace. Your silent power unsettles them more than any revenge. They weren't invited into your rise, and every cheer you receive, every room you enter without them, erodes their control. They mocked you, laughed at your rise. Now they whisper your name in reverence, afraid to speak it, because what you've become defies their world. You aren't just shining, you're glitching the simulation. They expected you small, expecting broken, expecting needy, but you outgrew all that. They want your secret blueprint, but it doesn't exist. You were forged in betrayal, solitude, fire. You survived what they couldn't and came back smiling. Your power lies not in your image, your captions, or your count. It lies in your stillness, your knowledge, your silent authority. You walk into rooms knowing you belong because you do. That calm confidence unsettles insecure souls. They can handle your queen energy if you claim it. But when you don't claim it, when you just are, their reality shatters. That's when the haunting begins. Not when you speak, but when you stay silent. When you exist in that eerie, unshakable peace. Their fear, their obsession, their broken minds, they all trail behind your quiet. So keep walking, keep shining, keep being, because the real power wasn't in the noise, it was in your silence. And the silence, it's not empty, it's loaded. Every second you don't speak, every photo without a caption, every time you walk away instead of explaining, it guts them, because they realize they can't read you anymore. And when people can't read you, they fear you. You used to lay your heart bare for them, bleeding, soft, open. Now you give them nothing. No reaction, no access, no explanation. And that void, it's louder than any scream you could let out. They're unraveling in quiet places, in grocery store aisles, in traffic. At 3:00 a.m. when everything is still and the weight of your absence presses down like gravity, they try to replicate you in others, search for traces of your soul in people who can't even pronounce your depth. They romanticize the way you used to say their name. They try to find your essence in recycled love stories, but all they get is static, because your energy wasn't manufactured, it was divine. And you were never something to replace. You were a once-in-a-lifetime frequency, and they let it slip. Now they sit across from new people, laughing at all the wrong things, nodding too hard, over-smiling, because deep down, they know the room feels dimmer without you. They don't talk about it, but their body remembers you. Their nervous system flinches at the sound of your name. Their soul mourns something it was never evolved enough to keep, and that's the most poetic punishment of all. They hurt you thinking they'd win, but you didn't just heal. You ascended, you detached, you elevated into a version of yourself that no longer lives in their world, no longer speaks their language, no longer bleeds for their chaos. They're still performing. You're just breathing, effortlessly, radiantly, powerfully. They thought your silence was weakness. They thought your absence meant defeat. What they didn't know was that your silence was preparation. Your absence was evolution. They didn't realize you were outgrowing the very room they tried to lock you inside of. And now, the irony, you could walk past them tomorrow and not even flinch. Not because you're cruel, but because you're healed. You don't need revenge. You became the consequence. Your peace is louder than any closure. Your stillness echoes like thunder in the hollowness of their world. You no longer orbit them. They spin restlessly in the gravitational pull of your detachment. Your indifference is a void they fall into daily, and every attempt to climb out only confirms what they lost. You were the light. You were the fire. You were the reason the room felt alive. And now you're the standard they can't reach. the reflection they can't face, the ghost they summoned with arrogance and drove away with ignorance. You're not the past. You're the prophecy. You're what happens when someone refuses to die in the story written for them, when someone turns ashes into architecture. So don't speak, don't explain, don't look back. Let them ache, let them spiral, let them wonder, because you, my dear, have already won. And here's the part they'll never confess, even to themselves. You were right about all of it. The warnings, the silence, the intuition. They mocked. Every time you pulled away, they called you cold. Every time you spoke truth, they called you dramatic. Every time you saw through their facade, they labeled you too much. But you weren't too much. You were accurate. You read their soul like a prophecy, and that terrifies them now, because everything you sensed unfolded without theatrics, without revenge, just truth unfolding like a slow, inevitable storm. Now their guilt has a pulse. It walks beside them in daylight and curls beside them at night. It shows up in their reflection, in the awkward laugh they fake when your name is brought up, in the way they check your stories with trembling hands, hoping you've moved on, praying. They want to see you heal, but not heal this much. They want you to rise, but not so high they can't reach you. They wanted you to be okay, but not powerful. Never this powerful, because here's what keeps them up at night. They know if they begged for another chance, you wouldn't even blink. Not because you hate them, but because you've outgrown them. You were once a mirror, showing them what they could become. Now you're a window, showing them what they'll never touch again. And every time they scroll, every time they eavesdrop, every time they feel that ache of, I let the real one go, the universe whispers, you did. They lost access to your light when they chose to shadow it. They lost your softness when they tried to weaponize it. They lost your future when they played games with your past. And the ultimate twist? You forgave them. Because you never needed revenge. You needed rebirth, and you gave it to yourself. Piece by piece, breath by breath, until the old version of you crumbled into dust. Now, there's nothing left for them to return to. No door to knock on. No version of you that still bleeds for their name. They thought closure meant getting the last word, but closure was you disappearing while still being everywhere. Your silence is their haunting. Your healing is their punishment. Your success is the sermon they never wanted to attend but can't stop quoting. So walk on, unbothered, unreachable, and that is the most devastating truth they'll never escape. And just when they thought the ache would fade, it deepens, because time isn't healing them, it's revealing them. The farther you rise, the clearer their reflection becomes. Now they see the monster in the mirror, the one who let gold slip through their hands because they were too blind, too arrogant, too small to recognize its worth. And you? You're not bitter. You're brilliant. You didn't just walk away. You ascended. Without fireworks, without rage. Just a quiet, sacred evolution that made everything they once touched feel obsolete. Now, every love they chase feels like a watered-down version of you. The sparks never the same. The depth missing, because you weren't just a person. You were a dimension. They didn't date you. They experienced you. And now, even their fantasies feel cheap. They try to recreate your energy in others, forcing it, faking it, framing it, but the essence doesn't stick. Because you weren't built for replication. You were a once-in-a-lifetime frequency, and they tuned out too soon. Now, they'd give anything just to hear the static of your silence again. It's eating them alive in the spaces they swore they were free. At brunches filled with forced laughter, in beds that feel colder with company. In texts they rewrite 12 times, but never send. Because how do you apologize to a soul that no longer needs the apology? They know they can't reach you now, but that doesn't stop them from trying. In subtle ways, in fake coincidences, in showing up where they hope you might be, wearing their best lie, but it's too late. The door's not just closed, it's vanished. You didn't just lock it. You burned the room and built a kingdom from its ashes. And now, every room you enter shifts. People lean in. Energy aligns. Eyes follow. Because presence like yours doesn't whisper, it roars. Without a word, without a need, without a single look back. They wanted to be your lesson, but they became your origin story, the scar that shimmered when the light hit right, the wound that bloomed into power. You were never meant to chase, you were meant to choose, and now you choose peace. You choose silence. You choose, and here's the part that carves the deepest into their soul. You're no longer reachable. Not emotionally, not spiritually, not even in the fantasies they cling to when the world gets too quiet. You've become untouchable in ways they never prepared for. Not because you disappeared, but because you evolved into something they can no longer comprehend. They watch from the outside now, pressing their faces against the glass of your life, trying to decode a language they once mocked. Every memory they minimized, every moment they laughed at your softness, every time they rolled their eyes when you spoke your truth. It all replays in their mind, like a punishment designed by the universe itself. But nothing about you was ever ordinary. You were a storm, disguised as stillness. A galaxy cloaked in simplicity, and now they're drowning in the very ocean you learned to walk across. You don't need revenge. You became it. Your life, unfolding quietly and divinely, is the revenge. Every smile you wear without them twists the knife. Every success you achieve without noise, without validation, without seeking applause. It echoes in the hollow parts of their spirit like a haunting. They expected your silence to mean surrender. But you were silent because you were building. You are stacking resilience in the shadows, brick by brutal brick, while they were mistaking their noise for relevance. You were becoming. And now, they live in a world where you thrive. Where your name enters rooms before you do. Where your energy lingers in spaces you've never stepped foot in. Because your presence isn't just remembered, it's felt. They try to explain it away. Call it coincidence, call it luck, call it timing. But it's not timing. It's karmic precision. It's cosmic alignment. It's the aftermath of underestimating someone who was never average. You didn't just glow up, you ascended. And that scares them, because every time you laugh, it contradicts the story they told themselves. Every time you remain silent, it strips their lies of oxygen. You've become a disruption to the narrative they need to survive. The lie that said you were broken, disposable, replaceable. But you weren't broken. You were transforming. They expected ruin. They got royalty. And the truth they can't whisper out loud? They didn't just lose a person. They lost access to someone they never truly deserved. You became the thing they feared most: sacred, safe, sovereign. Now, your name is a trigger, your energy a mirror, your success a sermon they can't unhear. They flinch at your light, not because it burns, but because it exposes. You didn't just rise, you elevated. Without their permission, without their validation, without a single glance back, and that's what haunts them now. The realization that you never needed them. Not then, not now, not ever.